Watch.
It's going to be just one solid sheet flow all the way up. A miracle of nature.
Tragic. Oh, look at you landed. Yeah.
All right.
This is good, bodes well for the watch.
Yeah.
Go ahead and push in there.
That looks like a good beefy boy. I'll take it.
Okay, come wide. All boxes are free.
Can I write that as a good beefy boy in the in situ description?
Yes, please.
If you don't, we'll be disappointed.
Switch over cameras real quick.
Roger.
Switching over to sample salvo. The other sample salvo.
What sample number is that?
199.
199, thank you.
So I'm going to go weep it in. So this one's going to D.
No! Oh, sorry.
You're all good.
Go. In. Are you too big?
Maybe too beefy.
Good, and pick it back up.
You're too big.
I think it's at a, if it's at a different angle, maybe it will work.
Well, in that case.
Try rolling it into C. Nice.
Awesome.
Nice.
Foxy.
That one's in C, guys.
Thank you.
That's a cool stove. Going back to type salvo now.
Raj.
It's like a 3-point turn there.
Here's a question in the chat. Do you have a weight
Nice,
limit
Kelly.
on rocks that you can collect, or do you have a ballast of some form, presumably eco-friendly, that you can drop to compensate for the weight of samples picked up?
Yeah, we have a few ballasts on the ship. You might have seen, you'll see us at some point. This dive drop one or two. They're made out of pure iron that's designed to dissolve pretty readily over time in water, and on organic hemp rope that would also dissolve. So minimally impactful to the environment and can help offset the rate of all the rocks I try to grab.
The weight limit is the most the ocean science interns can carry when we carry it from the ROV to the wet lab when we have to process all the samples.
Always looking to test that.
Yeah, we know.
Bridge now.
We're building the beefiest of engines.
2070.
Do you all weigh the rocks when you take them back to the lab?
I don't think we have a scale on board that can handle some of the current rocks.
Okay.
Yeah, some of them we can't. We have a suitcase handle that we can weigh bags with rocks in them in.
Oh, cool.
It's hard to get a good weight on a boat because it's constantly moving.
Right.
So they will re-weighed usually when they're brought into the repository on land.
Okay.
And by FedEx, who charges us a lot of money to ship all these rocks.
Yeah, as the samples get unloaded, there's occasionally a call for, hey, where are the geologists? We know you have at least one grad student in the geology party. Shouldn't he be carrying rocks?
Yeah, Well, Brandon, I see Brandon there sometimes.
Yes, yes, he frequently appears and unloads the rocks.
I got in the way a few times, but I'm about as wide as the hallway of the lab, so I just kind of feel like I'm in the way at all times. Plus, the first and most important things are eDNA and Liz's grim work.
Yeah, Team Water Filter grabs our samples, and then it's just filter, filter, filter for about an hour. And for anyone who wants to know what it looks like when we process samples, they always turn on the wet lab camera after the dives. And so I believe it's usually on channel 3, although sometimes on channel 1. You can watch us process samples, although I will warn the audience at home there is no sound. So you will have to make your own soundtrack.
What soundtrack would you like them to make for you guys? Something classical or something a little bit more intense?
I like Benny Hill.
Honestly, we play Beyonce in there sometimes. We jam.
Something a little more energetic than it sounds like.
I'll say clearly the answer is yakety sax.
What is that?
I am unfamiliar as well.
It's kind of the classic, like, cartoon kind of country-esque, like, with some brass band, things moving at rapid paces music.
You got to zoom on the fishy?
Sure.
Yep, it's trying to get away.
Oh, yeah.
Sneaky little snake.
Thinking like Bugs Bunny, like Looney Tunes?
Kinda.
Okay.
I'm not going to make an attempt to sing it for you because we don't need this watch to dissolve into helpless giggles this early.
Oh, boo.
You can bring it
Give
out
it
later if you'd like. And
I mean, we're just waiting for the first shrimp, really.
Honestly.
You can delay it all you want, it's still going to happen.
What are some things you think we might find today?
Shrimps. Nailed it. There's one.
Let's
Can we
get
zoom
him.
on the shrimp?
Yeah, let's get it.
yeah?
Yeah.
Roger.
I'm expecting no limestone, so all basalt all the way up. Relatively thick ferromanganese crusts. Not a ton of sediment once we get into it. There'll be
Go ahead
packets
and
here
push
and
up in
there.
there, please.
Oh, beautiful.
He's got the grace, he's got the whiskers. Arms forward, legs swimming. See if we can get a flip.
Every time.
She's consistent.
It's the little ones in the front that look like they're galloping, like a small horse.
Yeah.
We have a lot of good shrimp zooms this for this watch, I think.
Yeah.
We just want to make her laugh.
We're the only watch that puts forward shrimp highlights.
All right, go ahead and start to come wide, please. I think it should be an hourly event.
Whenever we need to pick me up, just find a shrimp.
This is a really interesting flow here.
Yeah, it's very low
Yeah,
radius
let's do it.
pillows. So it's all pillowy,
Like
but they kind of broke up into small bits, which is interesting. So maybe
Good,
a really
shot
low
in here,
flow
though.
rate.
Sorry.
Breach nav, 500 meters,
Yeah,
072, 0.2 knots.
it's really defined pillow structure. This kind of classic. You can kind of see where it collapsed a little bit in this little indent here.
Yeah.
It happens sometimes when it's still hot and you have gas pockets.
We must not be in a great flow position for corals, since this would be great habitat, but it is somewhat sedimented, and I'm not seeing any benthic invertebrates living on it.
Yeah,
ahead and come mine there, please.
So I want to stop eating this flockum. Is that what it's called?
Flocculent?
Flocculent material.
Flocculent. I like flockum.
It's like flotsam, but flocculent. So it's flockum. I like
Walk 'em,
it.
walk 'em.
It's a perfect storm. Shrimp and silly words.
Walk 'em, flock 'em, robots.
So here's the flow front, or flow edge. Kind of well defined where you can see how far the flow went. And it must have solidified a little bit on the front and then pushed into it, so it's a little bit of a high relative to the surrounding environment. Everything else is sedimented.
Hopefully with all this recently deposited marine snow on the bottom, Liz will be able to get some really great holothurian samples that have been actively feeding on it.
Yeah, we only saw one so far, but wasn't in a sampleable position. Unless you want to get real precise with the hose.
Could do a fly-in slurp.
Yeah,
Oh,
quick draw.
not even. We could just leave it there and then run into it with.
Oh, I like that too. The old roadkill strategy. There's a Holothurian track to the top left, most likely.
Oh yeah.
Have we seen any sea pigs or gummy squirrels yet?
I think one of the other watches got a gummy squirrel.
And they didn't tell me.
And I think they also got a sea pig-esque.
I gotta zoom on a gummy squirrel.
Can you get a zoom on the Holothurian to the top right?
Top right, Reg.
I think that's what it is. It might be a cucumber-shaped rock. We'll see.
I think you're right.
The gummy squirrel's a siphonophore, right?
No, the gummy
Oh.
squirrel is the cucumber. A sea pickle.
If I was a siphonophore that looked like a squirrel's tail, what would that be called?
I think you get to name that one.
Yeah.
It looks like, I mean, I thought it was called a gummy squirrel because like it looked like a squirrel's tail, and it was like the way siphonophores have like those little valvey looking things, you know?
I mean, it is
Sorry, zoom
possible
there,
because
please.
one of the reasons why common names can be an issue is that you can have more than one thing
Oh.
named.
So do we want to take this for Liz? It's got a nice spiny back.
I think this would probably be a good choice, especially with all this fresh material on the seafloor.
I can
Bridge
see- I
nav,
can
hold
see-
position.
I can see the
Gotta
sediment
shoot that
inside.
backwards
Yeah,
too.
let's go
Yeah.
on.
All right, full wide, please.
Bridge nav, 20 meters, 250.
We can start to get set up on this, but we're gonna have a swing in us a wee bit.
Okay.
So we might have to get up and move pretty quickly.
Are we slurping and putting it in a slurp, or are we slurping and putting it in a bin?
Whichever
It's
is
too
easier.
big for a slurp.
Well, you'd be surprised, frankly.
I think this guy's too big though.
But where are we gonna
Bridge
put it?
nav, you can increase speed 0.3 knots.
In a bin?
And yeah,
Like forward or starboard?
forward bin.
Roger.
All right, we can. See how this settles out. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
can do the flush jar?
Yeah, yeah. Just looking at this, we might want to, you might drop in a target here, there, Chris. Kylie, I'm going to actually...
Do what you need to do?
Yeah, if you want to get the arm out, you can, but then we're going to have to...
Yeah, I'm halted. I'm just...
Well, you're kinking on the hose there, but...
I was going to hold on to it.
Roger.
Yeah. But...
Yeah, that's good there. I'm going to move.
Raj.
All right, we dropped a target here. We're going to come back to it in a moment.
Bridge nav 20250.
Sounds good.
Yeah, if you want to stow it for a minute, then we can get some good boost. We dropped a target though, so we can come back to it.
Raj.
What if he's not there when we come back?
Well, then it'll be...
I like how we just drop down, threaten it, and then say we'll be right back.
Yeah.
They better have our money when we come back.
Yeah, with a lot of layback, it's sometimes setting up for samples, we have to, especially on walls and stuff. Like this wall.
That's a nice looking wall. More pillows.
Do you want me to turn towards you at all?
No, you're good. Thank you though.
Nice steep, thick basalt wall.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, it's surprising there's no critters on this. Oh, there's a critter.
Ooh.
Nice.
All right. Looks like Atlantis stopped and should back up another 10 meters or so.
Great.
Should start to back up.
Thanks, Chris.
Is that another one of those petrified sponges in front of us?
Yeah, I was just noticing that. That's definitely a petrified sponge.
There's
Oh,
a
and a
coral.
coral. The very first one.
Oh, there's two, yeah. Which one do you guys want to look at while we wait?
A truncated
Yeah.
pillow. It's actually a beautiful truncated pillow basalt. Where it was flows of pillows going up this way, and then it cracked in half, and you can see the interior.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a highlight?
For me.
Yeah.
Not for the folks at home.
I'm going to do a partial zoom here, please. That's good.
It's Polyps are facing upward, so I'm assuming it's not a primnode.
Got some more
No, this is going to be a pleurogorgia.
Oh. Cute little polyps.
Go ahead and come a little wide there, please. Full wide, please.
How long ago do you think this seamount was formed?
That is a great question. We don't know the answer to. It could be 70-ish million years old, 70, 75, or it could be around 95. Not quite sure. There's two overlapping trends of seamounts right in this spot, and so it's difficult to say until we get the ages back. Definitely Cretaceous. Well, could not. It could also not be Cretaceous. You get surprised. But I assume it's Cretaceous.
So kind of channel running down the left of center there.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
This might be a good spot for a rock sample after we get this cucumber.
Go ahead, set up on the slurp there if you want, and then I'll fly us over to the cucumber. You can pull it out if you want, Kylie.
To where?
Kind of middle screen's good. I think I see the cucumber there. All right, I'm full racked back. Didn't even move.
Didn't bring us some money either.
Too much good food on the floor right here.
Oh.
30%?
Go ahead and like do like 60 or something so it stays in your grip.
Okay.
You mind coming down a wee bit in the delta there, please? Maybe one jump closer. All right. Stable here. You're all clear.
And turn the lights on.
Roger. Great. And then I'm going to pop out now. Let's go for Lambda. That one seems to be working better with the slurp than Omega.
I'm not going to use the bubble.
Okay. Nice. Let me know when you're good. That looks good.
Good.
Okay, zeroing now. believe it. Closing it in. Nice.
That was sample 200, which is exciting.
Lucky number 200.
Woohoo!
Nicely done. Awesome. You want to make a note back there also that we have a very floaty sample in that bin for whoever opens
Yes,
it
will
next.
do. Thanks.
Yep.
All right, ready to keep rolling?
Yeah, let's keep it rolling.
Okay. Bridge nav, 500 meters, 072.2 knots.
Kevin, once I get out ahead here and while we're waiting for the swing, you said you wanted a rock?
Yeah, at the base of that cliff, there was some exposed lava flow. I'm wondering if there's any rock coming from it.
Sure.
So there's a question in the chat about your communication with the bridge, Chris. Are you giving the bridge direction and distance to the ROV? Is there an ideal distance to be from the ROV?
I am giving the bridge the direction and range that I want them to move. We're not really trying to control distance from the ROV. We're basically trying to drag the ROVs around to where we want them to where we want them to be. So, yeah, that's pretty much the only way we have to control where Atalanta is. So we just kind of dangle it down on a big string and try to move the ship around to place it where we want.
Kind of like a marionette.
Or like a dog walker.
Yeah,
Kind of. Or like a yo-yo, just never...
a yo-yo that never came back, yeah? On an exceptionally long string, yeah.
Walk the dog.
It's like one of those harnesses where you can have two dogs strung together, but one has slightly more lead than the other.
Yeah. And gusto, really.
Something down around here, Kevin, or do you want a little bit further up?
Maybe a little further up.
Roger. Okay. That'll have to be a faster sample then.
There are a lot of like exposed basalt pieces here, and I can see current with a lot of ocean snow, but there's still no corals. Is there any other reason why we might not be seeing any in this area?
Well, we may not be seeing actually that much current. We may be seeing just motion from the ROV.
Oh.
It looks like there's a little, but we did see that one. It may just be that they have to be in the correct orientation where they're also not going to get buried in the sediment as well.
Oh, interesting. So there has to be like a balance with ocean snow where there's a lot of it, but not too much where they get buried by it.
Yeah, and they like current to bring it to them. And so you can kind of see in the Atalanta view that snow, the movement on it is mostly just up and down as we bob. It's not really being transported across. So there's not actually, doesn't look like there's much current here, although the ROV pilots could tell us.
Okay, cool.
The one with the lasers on it, is that possible?
Sure. Okay. I'm going to come down a little bit here, Kylie.
Do you want me to hold the ship, or are you going to be quick?
Go ahead and hold it.
Bridge nav, hold position.
Telestrate for me, please.
The one with the lasers on it now, I think.
Well, lasers are moving a small little pile of rocks, so I missed it when you did it.
Yeah, the one you're good for now. We get a little closer here. Nice. Semi.
Okay, go ahead and push in.
That works good. Thank you.
Okay, come on.
I guess actually you can just start that move up. Kylie's going to stow it real quick.
Okay.
I'll just take it out, the box.
Breach nav, 500-072. Same speed, roger.
Nice.
Sim B.
Thank you.
No problem.
And that's sample 201.
It's not indexing. Index button's not working.
Roger. Okay, Roger.
Ah, that's awkward. I'm just gonna turn it off, yeah?
Yeah. Maybe it needs to be, yeah, cycle power to it or something.
Okay.
Nice.
I thought I just missed the button when I was going around, and then not me. Down here, yeah?
Stand by. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I'll give it, I don't know, 10 seconds, 20.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Kylie.
No problem.
Someone tuning in notices that these rocks look lava flowy and blobby. What style of eruption might have created these rocks features?
Yeah, that's a great question. So these are essentially very effusive or maybe even fissure eruptions where you just have low amounts of lava kind of slowly creeping out, so nothing explosive. And the reason they give this structure most of the time is because as the lava comes out of the vent, it cools rapidly and it forms this crust and it kind of circles over. So you get this thick, bubbly crust. And then for at least lobate flows and sometimes pillows, you can still pump lava under the crust, so it inflate. Instead of actually expanding downhill further, it will inflate in place and you'll get these kind of bulbous structures. And so here we're kind of looking at a cone of a vent that was relatively near this location, just slowly pumping more magma under these thick glassy rinds of pillows. And the pillow then can start flowing as a unit itself. You can kind of see like a little pillow flow structure right above the laser.
I'm wondering how I can replicate this with some sort of convection in the oven.
Yeah, that's a great question. You need a convection that will quench or crystallize instantly on the outer rim as soon as it enters the liquid. Oh, there's a coal.
Yeah, it looks like a single stalk bamboo. I was actually thinking spray foam.
Yeah, spray foam's pretty good.
Or if you had a way to like instantly solidify toothpaste.
Thank you.
Why are some lava flows different colors?
They're all pretty much black to gray. They're going to be covered in different levels of sediment and ferromanganese. That's going to give it various shades of kind of gray. It's hard to tell the actual lava color, but for the most part it's going to be dominated by the main crystal phases, which are going to be in the ground mass, clinopyroxenes, altered olivines in this case, so dark minerals, spinels, magnetite.
Here's a question in the chat. If you could survive everything else and walk on the ocean floor, is this area, in this area, would you sink into muck? Is it like
I don't know if it's like
sinkable?
quicksand. You would certainly kick up a lot of stuff in your face every step you take.
Around here, the layer is probably not that thick. You can see all the rocks poking through it, so it'd probably be ankle or so deep. On the abyssal plain, it would probably be quite thick and sticky, and you'd probably sink up to your knees. We have another Ramuligorgia here, or pleurogorgia.
That's the same one from before.
That's
Yes.
the same one,
Yeah.
yeah.
And there's a crinoid on that boulder.
Like an enemy, hey? No, you're right, crinoid. Go ahead and push on there, please. Yeah.
Yep, there's a feather star. You can see its little stalk where it can pop off the rock and swim through the water. I think we have a highlight video of all the feather stars we've seen so far that was posted recently on this expedition.
Swimming.
Yeah,
Pull light, please.
that looks like a dead sponge that's heavily crusted.
We saw those all over down south, so it's interesting that we're still seeing them up here.
Yeah. Here's some lobate structures. Similar to pillow, but they're more elongated. There's higher flow rate, more magma pumping in. And there's another coral. Another, there's Untitled. Militarias.
Yep.
Go ahead and start a zoom there, please. Gotta come a
This
little
would be
way.
Ramuligorgia militaris, and we just have a bamboo coral underneath us as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to get not sit down on it.
It just made a brief appearance in the still cam.
Very nice.
So what terrestrial areas come to mind when you look at this? Somewhere where somebody could go and see something like this up close on the surface, on like a hike.
Yeah, there's not that many great spots. Keel Lake in Northern California. Trying to think of places that aren't heavily vegetated either, so it'll give you more of the feel. A few places in the Southwest where names are not coming to mind.
I think one of the issues when I think about where you could go to see something like this is pillow basalts are very much kind of a submarine feature, aren't they?
Yeah.
And so unless you've got a spot where they've been uplifted, they're not really something you're going to be able to see on a hike. To see more land-based lava flows, there's a lot of spots you can go in Volcanoes National Park in Hawaii. You can also, if you want to see kind of historic flows, there's places like Craters of the Moon, anywhere out kind of in the Vantage area, which has some of the really old flood basalts. And then for very recent pyroclastic style volcanic flows around Mount St. Helens, particularly the worm flows are out on the mountain.
Yeah. And if you want uplifted pillow basalts, there's Mary's Peak in Corvallis, Oregon. There's a nice little hike, and there's some pillow basalt features there that got abducted onto land. There's also some north of San Francisco in that area. I can't remember, in the Bay Area. There's some seamounts that kind of got abducted onto the land. But of course, those are going to be vegetated.
Also, Sunset Crater in Arizona is a great place to see. It looks exactly like this, which is pretty cool. Minus all the sedimentation and pillow basalts, but.
Yeah.
And if you're in the Midwest, Duluth in Minnesota is also a place where you can see basalt flows.
Is that from the mid-continental rift?
Yep, I'm pretty sure.
Which?
New Mexico has a really great cinder cone, and there's one that's a side cone off of Shasta as well, if someone wants to see that kind of volcanic formation.
Yeah.
And if you go to Craters and you want to hike I think it's called Sunset Volcano, you'll think that it looks pleasant to hike up and down those volcanoes. But just remember, every step you take, you will slide down a little bit. Rocks will get in your shoes. Just think about it before you go up. Just think about everything involved and then make a decision.
Yeah, some volcanoes are not present. I climbed Mount Naraho, which is in New Zealand, it's the volcano that they use for Mount Doom in the Lord of the Rings. And it is just a very steep rubble pile that kind of just tears you apart and wears you down.
Yeah.
I prefer to climb my volcanoes when they're covered in snow or glaciers.
But that is one of the best parks and hikes I've done in New Zealand. Beautiful area.
Looks like the DVL's ground fault worked itself out. Yeah.
We got, what is that floating in the water?
That was a copepod.
Cocopod?
Oh, I think it's a swimming cucumber,
Up ahead.
maybe.
Can you guys zoom?
Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just a cucumber
Start your zoom.
floating with the breeze, moving along.
That's good there.
They look like little ghosts.
Yeah.
This is the headless chicken monster, right?
Yep. It has clearly eaten its fill of all of this flocculent marine snow.
This sea cucumber looks a little different than the one that we saw earlier, or even the other ones with the flaps, like.
Yeah, this one has more of a
more like a cape.
umbrella flap. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead and come wide. Thruster wash.
Yep, this is Enypniastes.
Enypniastes?
Yeah, Enypniastes.
The view on Atalanta is pretty interesting.
Oh yeah.
Very stunning.
So it looks like a wall to Hercules' starboard and then a cliff to the port.
Yeah. Little playground.
And yet
Go ahead.
still no coral.
Sure.
Go ahead, Bridge.
Looks like maybe a dead sponge or just a big pile of flocculum. No, I think it's just flocculent.
This one's fractured in interesting ways here.
Yeah, you can see the thick crust, and then where the interior filled in,
Yeah.
and then it cracked along the crust.
The Atalanta view too, if you want to push in on the Atalanta view.
That's really nice.
It's like a ribbon there. How about the
A
tilt?
little more Ramuligorgia.
Reg. Oh, still a nice view.
Yeah, hasn't. This would be a great time for a rock drill.
Next ROV.
Uh-huh.
We'll have a rock drill.
Go ahead, come wide there, please.
Go ahead. Yeah, affirmative, Bridge. We can do that.
Here's a question in the chat.
Roger.
Understood, Bridge.
Do you anticipate seeing more sea life at these depths, or is this kind of what you expect?
I expected a bit more, given how steep it is. And the current in the area is not, well, modeled wasn't decently strong, not super strong, but expected a bit more than this. Jess, are you feeling any current?
No, actually,
Yeah,
not really.
it's pretty stagnant. We must be in a little like turbulent, a little eddy where it's just kind of still.
Chris, does that mean that they're not able to make a move for a few minutes?
No, I think they can make a move again now.
Okay.
They just wanted to reduce the thrust so they could use it to steer the ship.
Okay.
So we can. Yeah. Understood. Let's do 50072.
Great. Thank you.
Here's a question in the chat for our ROV pilots.
Never mind.
When planning a dive, is there a predictive current estimate? What would be the limits in terms of knots that the ROVs can handle?
Yeah, there's some very broad course models called HICOM for this region. There's not a lot of like on-ground data to confirm stuff, but you can model it. And so we were looking at in this area, what do we calculate about? Do we have a number? Somewhere a little less than 0.05 meters per second. I don't know what it is in knots. And I do not know what the max the hook can handle though.
Yeah, sorry, one moment. We can address this question in a second. Was that telestration, did you want one of these rocks?
I was thinking about it, but I should hold off because I can only grab 2 at this depth.
Oh, Raj, okay.
Thank you. I want this rock right in front of us with the lasers on.
You've got 20 hours to go.
Yeah, exactly.
I need to answer your question. So like for making forward headway in the water, we want to get visual acquisition of the features on the seafloor or whatnot, then like 0.5 is kind of the max that will fly. If we're countering like a current on the surface or whatnot, then it's like maybe at full jam you can get a little bit over that. But to really have good position control and stuff, half a knot or so would be maybe a knot, but we wouldn't go over that.
Is there a critter I'm missing?
No, it's just almost columns there.
Oh, that's what you were pointing out. Sorry. I thought there was a critter I was trying to find. Yeah, we're getting a little slower cooled. Definitely a big, thick lava foot structure.
Yeah, go ahead and push on in here a bit, center screen. Just look at the rocky features a little bit closer up. That's great.
Yeah, you can see where it's kind of truncated the basalt and fell off. And its crust. It's hard to tell if this is all ferromanganese crust or original crust as well from the glassy bits. Thank you.
Go wide, please. All right, I'll start coming up.
Yeah, I feel like a boulder like this on most of our dives would have been covered with stuff. So we're just in a stagnant area. Yeah,
there's just not enough current flow here, which also you can see on the bottom with the way all of that fresh snow is just sitting there.
Yeah.
Like if there were just the movement from the ROV is enough to kind of blow it away. So this is pretty stagnant right where we are.
We have a zoom. Is this a sea store or is that sediment?
Raj.
That's just sediment. Never mind. Pointy sediment. Well, once we hit waypoint 2 and 3, we'll be up on a ridge that's higher, and it's getting current from multiple directions, so we might be in a better spot. I think we're kind of shielded where we are right now from a westward current.
Here's another question in the chat. Is basalt rock lighter or heavier when formed underwater?
It's the same. Yeah, the hydration doesn't really affect it too much because the glass kind of seals it from interacting. So you're looking at, off the top of my head, 2.7 grams per cubic centimeter density on land or in the water. I think it's about the same. You may get, depending on what depth you're at, actually it can be lighter. You can get more vesicles, depending on if you're on land, so more gas bubble voids, and that's going to make it overall lighter.
It's okay to use the bubble.
So would that be pumice, or is that something else?
Scoria would be like the really light on land version of a basalt. Pumice is a felsic version of that, but yeah, same idea. So it's so bubbly, it's almost, it can float. It's, not dense. You get those during really gassy, explosive eruptions. At depth, a lot of that gas gets doesn't actually exsolve, because it's so high pressure that it just forces it to stay inside the basalt. It can't degas. But you still get those bubbles. It's a little different. And then the interior of the flow, you tend to not have those bubbles, and it's the densest part of the flow. That rock we grabbed, on the last dive from that summit of that volcanic cone, we kind of yanked out of the top of it, which was awesome. That is super dense, really nice dense rock. So it's definitely an interior, intrusive sentry. There's a lonely holdfast, but didn't make it. Nice. Actually, is it a barnacle or something? Can we have a zoom on it?
Yeah, sure.
Might be a little sponge.
Go ahead and start your zoom there, please.
Oh, it's a barnacle.
Yeah.
Gooseneck barnacle.
Nice gooseneck barnacle.
kind of weird to see just one.
Sorry. Thank you.
It's
Are
not
those
feeding.
hydrozoans coming
Can
off
you
it,
come
or
on,
is that
please?
part of the barnacle?
I suspect that's hydrozoans just growing on the outside of the shell.
We haven't really seen too many gooseneck barnacles down here.
No. There's a little sea cucumber getting blown around.
Yeah.
Trying to go with the flow.
My favorite barnacle fact is that they're actually crustaceans, and they live doing permanent headstands. Those little appendages that come out are actually their feet.
We have a zoom on the tunicate.
Yeah, sure.
I think it's a tunicate. That's crazy. I would never guess those are crustaceans. Is that? What is it?
I don't know that that is the tunicate like we've been looking at. That might be a sponge.
Yeah, it's funky.
Go ahead and push on in there, please.
That is a sponge.
Is it one of the encrusting sponges, or?
No, it's forming a little vase out from the rock.
Oh,
I would say we should do a quick check and verify whether or not that is a Chris Kelly collection target.
it is a, assuming this is what Steve's referring to, Atlantisella.
Go ahead and come line there, please.
Let's see, let me Google that.
Chris, you want to drop a target here? Thank you. All right, well, you've dropped a target in case it is a collection item.
Excellent, thank you.
Let us know and we'll stop the ship if we need to. Well, we will need to. Yeah.
The ship is stopped, but I can start backing up.
Roger.
Wow.
So Steve says it wouldn't hurt to take a sloop if we can.
Roger.
Okay.
Here's a echinoderm. I'm guessing a star of some sort.
Bridge nav 40250. Set speed 0.3 knots too.
Very cool.
Nice big brisingid star there.
Go ahead and push on in there a bit there, please.
That's about 12
That's
arms,
good
it looks
there.
like.
Sorry. Looks like it's on the Titanic, right?
Yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio is right behind it. All right, full wide, please.
Full wide.
Can we have a zoom on that fish?
Sure.
Hiding.
Go ahead and start your zoom there, please.
Got a nice blue skull. Or head.
Got some more zoom?
Yeah, I think we've seen this one before.
We have.
Go ahead and come line, please.
Thank you. That is a Diplocanthopoma. Is it? Or is he referring to something else? Note the double lateral line. This is all coming off the top of my head and not reading from science journal.
Do we know the species name of the sea cucumber that we sampled?
That one seems to be a bit of a question mark in our guide. There are a couple of them that appear, and they're just listed as Synallactidae / late Mogonidae, so it's unclear what they actually are.
Would Liz be able to identify the sea cucumber once she does her gut content analysis, or?
They'll also take a genetic sample to just confirm the species ID on that sample, because some of them you really need to distinguish genetically.
Here's a lonely little coral.
Maybe it's just independent.
Or independent coral that is happy with its life choices. Thank you.
You also have to remember that there are lots of little polyps, right? So
I guess, yeah, it's like a little mini village in the middle of this rock.
All right, go ahead and push out on there, please. Back row, we're still going to get that sponge sample, or just
Oh, it's
getting
not
the
a
vehicles in
super
position.
priority, so maybe we can just keep moving, and then if we see another one, slope it.
Oh, this is a black coral. This is a heteropathes.
That's,
Full
you can
ice.
actually see the black on the base of the stem.
Yeah, and this front portion of it is, they have 2 rows of spines, one that's lateral and one that's to the front, anterior, and that's one of the distinguishing characteristics, and that zoom gave us a really good view of those anterior spines, which are also polyp covered.
Nice.
So, quick question.
Yeah.
So we have the ship almost backed all the way up. It'll take about 5 minutes to feel the swing, or maybe 3 minutes to feel the swing on Atalanta.
Uh-huh.
So we're almost there.
I think Atalanta's basically stopped already.
Yeah, so we're
Okay, so then we can go take it. Yeah.
yeah. So it'll probably take another like 5 minutes for setup, but
Okay.
yeah, just with these depths of 2.4 kilometers, there's a lot of latency for sample collection.
Understood.
All right. See if we can get it from here.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much Atalanta is going to back up from this position.
Yeah.
I can put more move in if you want.
Yeah, just to get us there, but we'll see. Yeah, go ahead. Like 20 meters or so.
Yeah. Bridge nav, 20 meters, 250.
There's a few little corals tucked in a pocket of that basalt I saw real quick.
Maybe we can reach. Oof. Yeah, go ahead. Reg.
Now, as we reposition, we just tempt Kevin with all of these rocks.
I want them all.
Look at all the rocks.
Yeah. You just put a little drag, big chain bag beneath hook. We can just keep loading it up.
She's at secondary crane that's on the ship, have it dangle a bag, and Herc can just move rocks into it.
Yeah, just pull it up
Yeah.
every now and then to empty it.
All right, it should be somewhere around here. Let's take a wag to the right. Should be here somewhere. Yeah. You want to zoom in here, Chris, real quick? Looks like it's a little bit off.
I think I see it in the still cam. It's,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
there it is, up in the upper left corner.
Awesome. All right, racking back now. Dredge. Raj. All right, there you go. All right, I am settled here more or less. Roger. Sorry? Here, let me turn this guy off real quick.
How are you wanting to take a sample of this sponge?
Since this is a glass sponge, it'll be very friable, which is like delicate and brittle, and so we'll be able to just slurp some of it off the edge.
Agreed. Roger. Yeah, do you mind if I borrow? Okay, thank you.
Bridge nav, 10 meters, 145.
Sorry, back row, we're having a brief issue with our manip controller, so stand by.
Raj.
Interesting.
So I'll pass along a few questions then. How does it feel exploring the unknown? I would say personally it feels very exciting, and I'm just like anticipating what's going to happen next, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. You never know when you just kind of, everything looks similar, then you take a right turn, you see this extreme critter you've never seen before. So it's always exciting.
It always feels like a privilege to have these, you know, first encounters with areas of the seafloor.
I agree. Usually I'm pretty focused on like writing down observations and everything that the scientists say, but then we'll turn a corner and like no one's doing their jobs anymore. You know, we're all just like 5-year-olds in wonder, like looking at this giant sponge that we looked at. Like, we're not scientists, we're not data loggers for a couple minutes. We're just like humans that are seeing something incredible that no one's seen before. And I think that's my favorite part. It feels really uniting in a cool way. So yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah, so I know I saw a couple questions in the chat about how do we choose which scientists to go in the ROV and what do we bring in the ROV? So we're actually not in the ROV. ROV stands for remotely operated vehicle. So we're actually in this control van on top of our ship, the EV Nautilus, and we have our ROV pilots that are controlling the remotely operated vehicles. So for instance, what kind of snacks do you bring down there? We bring a bunch of snacks in our control van on the ship. Like Chanel has a pretzel right now. And I had like a bread bun that I brought in here. And I think Jess always brings these random snacks from her great big bag of treasures of snacks, and we share with the whole team in the control van. But if you want to learn more about our technology, you can go to our Science and Tech tab on our website, nautiluslive.org. And if you go down to our technology section, you can learn more about the ship, different parts of the ship, and our remotely operated vehicles. So we're currently using ROV Hercules and ROV Atlanta for this dive. So definitely check that out.
Bridge nav, 10 meters, 100.
I like to think of them as our robot friends that we drive around on the seafloor.
It's much nicer being in the control lab than being stuck in a very small spot for 8 to 12 hours.
Who?
Yeah, I think if we were actually in a robot underwater, I probably would be scared instead of excited.
Any little creak and crack, what's that? It's all over. Although, from what I'm told, being in an actual human-operated vehicle, an HOV, it gives you a very different perspective because it's much less 2D. It gives you a really 3D view, so it actually does come off a lot different. I would like to do it one day, but not today.
So back row, sorry, we've been having some issues with our controller for our manipulator. This might be a few minutes of a what do we call it? Troubleshooting.
Take your time.
However, we're gonna get a big cheese up here to Raj. Anywho, so we could just continue on our way as this is a low priority target, or we could sit here and while we wait, but we could also troubleshoot when we're flying. What would you prefer?
I think troubleshoot while flying. We'll
Okay.
keep moving towards waypoint 2.
Yeah, I concur. Let's go ahead and move on, and we'll troubleshoot on the fly.
Okay, sounds good. Great. The manip's gonna look a little weird for a few minutes, but yeah, well, we can. Sorry about that. We backed up, got all in position, and now things are not working the way they should.
You want me to move this?
Yeah, sure, thank you. Thanks. Let's not look at that picture anymore.
They got sponges grown since we've been here.
Oh, thank you. Oh, actually, maybe we can resolve this really quickly here.
Yeah, so here's a question. Have you guys ever seen any trash down there? So I know on our last dive, we saw a couple like old open cans.
Yeah, the close to anywhere where there's been humans, we'll see stuff on the bottom. So when we were doing dives that were right off the atoll, there were several cans. One of the watches saw a bucket. There was a barrel. So you tend to see a lot more of that where people have been more recently.
And you tend to see it around where there's major shipping routes. So we're in an area of the world where there's no shipping through this area because it's not in between any major ports. It's not a seaway, essentially. But there's some areas where if you have a lot of shipping containers going back and forth, you'll find tons of debris on the floor.
We also saw a tire, right? Yeah. And I think a sandal. We saw like a sandal on one of the dives, a flip
Yeah,
flop.
I think one of them saw a flip-flop.
Yeah.
And here's another question. Have you guys ever encountered something dangerous?
Oh, at 3 o'clock every day, they put out pastries and stuff, and diabetes is a killer, so.
I think the biggest thing ROV pilots worry about is a line in the water becoming entangled in something.
Yeah, doing work off California and Washington, they've had some encounters with derelict fishing gear that have been somewhat hair-raising, but the very skilled pilots were able to deal with all of those situations. I've done some work where sharks just won't leave the ROV alone for a little while, which isn't really dangerous. It's just kind of first fun and then annoying from a camera perspective. And I've been involved with one dive with NOAA, so not off a NOAA ship, where we did a dive into a canyon where there was so much sediment up in the water column that the visibility was basically zero. So we aborted that dive very quickly, just because you couldn't tell how close you were to the canyon walls at all.
All right, Chris, let's get moving, I suppose.
Okay. Bridge nav, 75 meters, 072. 0.3 knots, or sorry, 0.2 knots.
Yeah, 0.2, thank you.
Wait, bridge nav, hold position.
Back row, we're gonna try slurping it just by flying into it.
Sounds good. Be safe.
Be safe, Raj.
Face slurp, Raj.
You're stupid.
Yeah, I don't even know if we'll have a right reach here because we're at the wrong angle, but let's try it. Go ahead and put on the slurp there.
Slurp is going to be, let's just do 100%.
Yeah. As long as we don't punch an eyeball out.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
It's close, but probably no cigar.
Almost there.
This sponge lives to see another day, I think, guys.
Yeah.
I think we're forbidden.
It was worth trying, though.
Yeah.
That was a good effort.
Okay,
I don't think it's worth headstanding the still cam into that rock.
agreed. At least there's a nice bumper, but
Bridge nav,
Yeah.
75072, 0.2 knots.
nice suggestion, Kylie. Thank you.
Anything for science.
Unsuccessful face slurp.
Or as Kevin calls it, the roadkill method.
That's only if you bump into it and then slip it.
Okay. Or manipulous now.
Yeah,
They took
Kevin,
our, they took
Kevin,
our
they
hand.
took our hand.
Oh my God, who's seen Moonstruck?
I have.
He took my hand.
Right.
Johnny's got his hand. Johnny's got his manip.
For those folks that aren't in the control van, we're just getting our controller getting service downstairs while we fly some more. So hopefully we'll be back online in an hour or so.
Because the button got stuck?
In the trigger part of the top side manipulator, there are maybe 7, 8 tiny wires, tiny gauge wires, and they when you close the jaws and you hold the trigger shut, they all move, they jostle, they are meant to be pinned to the side, but that is a pinch point for the wires because they go through where the trigger is to the 3 buttons on top. It seems like there's probably just a disconnected wire, and it happens because the nature of that is a place that things move, and they are so tiny.
Yeah.
But they'll open it up, they'll solder the wires back together, they'll close it up, and they'll bring it back up here. It's like doing heart surgery.
On a moving ship.
Yeah. You ever try soldering something really small while everything's moving?
I think it's all because I didn't grab that rock that I thought about.
See, aren't you glad though that we did grab the 2 rocks?
I didn't grab, yeah. Now we can spend the next hour going through a loose basalt field.
We're going to come into an amazing coral garden too.
Yeah.
Observation only.
We'll try the roadkill sample for the basalt field.
Yeah, we just hold on to it until we get it back working.
And if you really see a big rock that you really want,
we could
always
sample with the Mongo, couldn't we?
Very
Smaller
slowly.
rocks, it has a smaller hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's jaw. It's got TMJ. Doesn't really open up much.
Yes, TMJ.
Jaws don't open that wide.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you?
Any other chat questions?
Yeah, so here's one. Have you found any ancient artifacts in the deep sea?
Well,
I believe there's some old Polynesian objects, some specific tools that have been found. I'm trying to remember the exact samples. I remember seeing. Let's see.
we didn't find them though.
No, as far as ancient artifacts, some stuff in the 1940s, most likely on Johnston.
Early Nautilus expeditions, while they were operating in the Black Sea and Turkey, did find, I think, an old Roman ship. There's pictures of it down in the hallway. And so they have been involved in some marine archaeology, just not in this area.
We found some beaked whale remains.
Right, the beaked whale skull fossil. So that was pretty ancient, possibly.
Yeah, so we were actually able to recover maybe the rostrum and a part of the forehead, I guess, of some sort of beaked whale that was encrusted in ferromanganese from a dive maybe, I don't know, what is time, but 5 days ago, 6 days ago, longer?
At some point in the recent past.
Only we had a record of that somewhere written down.
Yeah, if only we took...
We do have a record. Just my brain is not that record.
No.
That's why I write stuff down, everybody. Because it was like, was that Tuesday? Or last Tuesday?
All of this would be lost if it wasn't for Chanel and the great data loggers and science managers on board. As soon as I get on land, I'm going to forget everything I saw. I'm going to be searching for ramen, and that's about it.
I'll briefly forget, and then I'll do my data request and have thousands and thousands of images to go through. I need to train an AI to spot coral.
There's a few little critters underneath this rock. Can we zoom on them?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead and do a partial zoom in here, please. Let's get there.
What are those?
They're all different, aren't they?
Slightly, yeah. It looks like a hydrozone or something, but...
I think the one to the bottom right's different.
Oh yeah, that one looks
Sure. Yes, please.
like a living critter.
I think that's a hydroid.
I think these are hydroids. No, just kidding. I have no idea, but I trust everything Meredith says.
Full wide, please.
Cool. So there's some life on that rock. What phylum are hydroids in? Are they cnidarians?
They are cnidarians, and they are
Okay.
also in the Anthozoa,
Ah.
which means flower animals.
I'm glad you said that. I was going to ask. I was sitting on that. Anthozoa, flower animals. That's kind of like a cool name. Anthozoa.
I liked it because it's one of the ones that's, it's very descriptive. You could look at it and go, oh, I see why you named it this.
Right. Also, I like just zoa.
It's not a Havathurian, safely resting on some rocks.
Go ahead and push on there a bit, please. A little more zoom there, please. All right, full wide, please.
So Havathurians are bottom feeders. They don't need high current, they just need good stuff on the bottom. So this is actually a pretty good environment, it seems like, for them. Lots to munch on.
Wait, was that guy sitting on a rock? I had really weird depth perception there.
Correct.
Wow.
Sunbathing.
How-
Sun snacking.
How do sea cucumbers swim? That was a question in the chat.
I'm doing crunches.
Basically, they kind of take off and wiggle their bodies back and forth through the air. A lot of the water, a lot of these ones have kind of specialized frills and appendages that help keep them suspended when they do that. I'm very certain we will see another swimming holothurian at some point in this dive, and our viewer can get a really great real-time example. Otherwise, if they just rewind their video about an hour, we've seen a couple already.
Beautiful stacked lobate flow cliff. Now into a boulder field.
Kevin, are we looking at a variety of different lava flows, like that happen at different times, or is this sort of all consistent with one event?
Depends on how you define event. To me, this is kind of consistent with a single pulse of eruption, not pulse, but single eruptions over 100,000 years probably that we've seen so far. The volcano is probably a few million years old, as far as it's sorry, not a few million years old. It was probably active for a few million years. So these are different lava flows, so they're not like one single eruption, but it's not really possible from ROV footage to tell how many there are. But like right here on the left is kind of a more sheet-like thick flow that's distinct from the lobate flows we saw earlier. So you do get different structures indicating different dynamics at different times. This has a slight lobate nature, but very slight. You can kind of see the layering under the cliff face of this flow, and that is from different amounts of magma just being pumped into it. They tend to form kind of layers. So like in Hawaii, a classic example is you can get these kind of glass encrusted crusts, and then you can have miles of lava flowing beneath it, or lava flowing for miles beneath it. So you can have these really large lava tube systems being built, and you get the same kind of systems often on these deeper seamounts as well.
Kevin, let me know if you want geology zooms on anything, by the way.
Okay, thank you.
Here's a question in the chat. Oops, I lost it. Oh, here we are. Where are the samples stored aboard the ROV? And when you bring up the new samples to the surface, do they flatten or melt from the pressure difference?
So
yeah, go ahead, Meredith.
So the ROV has a variety of sampling drawers and pockets. So there's the front bio box, which has 2 boxes, and it's just below the front porch right under the cameras. There's a lateral bio box on the starboard side of the vehicle that has 5 chambers in it. There's a vacuum slurp sampler, which chambers are just above the camera. And then there's Niskin bottles on the port side of the vehicle. And all of those are places where samples can be put. And most of the samples, yeah, we don't see any flattening or changes. Most of the animals we collect down here don't use any kind of gas bladders. All of them don't use any sort of gas bladders for buoyancy, so they stay just fine when we bring them to the surface. The main thing that they don't like is the temperature difference between the surface waters and the water down here at the bottom.
A beautiful basalt cliff right here, kind of bordering on columnar structures. Still has a lot of these lobate rounded textures though. It keeps going and going. It's gorgeous. Now we're getting to much more columnar, so it's kind of going from lobate to really thicker sheet flows that have slow cooling.
Do the columns only form when the sheet flows are very thick?
Yeah, they need to be pretty thick, and yeah, to cool slowly and give those defined columns.
Man, you just keep going, yeah.
I love it.
That's really cool.
It's unadorned with critters, so it makes its full majesty.
Chris, you want to rest the mode
Oh,
there
there's
for
a
a
big
minute?
one.
Ah, great.
Here's
Coming to
now,
ruin the
hold
party.
position.
That's a nice looking sponge.
Oh, this side looks
20
like it's got a couple
meters,
corals on it too,
250.
so we might finally get into a little area where the flow rate is changing.
It's okay, we'll just let it swing for a minute. We don't need to back down.
Got another Ramuligorgia here.
Bridge nav, belay that. You can just hold position here.
Thank you.
Looks like you can see remnant flow structures on these lobate fingers. These little like wrinkles. Ooh, get a full dramatic view of the cliff.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that. Is Norbit running?
It is.
It is always running, Chris says.
Well, it's often running.
I was going to say, is Norbit running? Is that even a question on this watch?
Herc has a hat on. Norbit's running.
I mean, I guess if we're out in the mud or something.
Or ascending and descending.
All right, Chris, you can go ahead and start another.
Bridge nav, 75 meters, 070, 0.2 knots.
I will say, every time we get a question about Norbit, all I can think of is from a dive last week when Chris going, oh yes, it's Norbit time.
Here we see a sea of beautiful basalts waiting to be sampled someday.
Yeah. For sure. Epitaph. It's Norbit time.
Here's a question in the chat. How do seamounts form? How does the magma reach the crust?
That's a great question. So there's kind of three, if we're talking about seamounts, I'm going to talk about volcanoes that form away from plate boundaries, so in the middle of a plate. There's kind of three primary ways you can do that. One is by deforming the crust. So if you really pull on the crust and you make it, you can actually thin it out. And when it's thinner, the mantle beneath it can rise up and decompress, and that decompression can cause melting. And so you can have what's called like extensional volcanism, where you're extending the crust, making it thin, melting the mantle. The next one's a little more complicated, but it's called asthenospheric shear. And that is the asthenosphere, which is the convecting part of the mantle, can actually be moving at an opposite direction to the lithosphere. So the plate itself is moving in one direction, and the flowing asthenosphere is moving the other. And that creates a zone of shear that can actually cause melting, and that can cause flux melting. You find that near the East Pacific Rise in some areas, so you get chains of seamounts. And then the most commonly cited way is what are called mantle plumes. And those are large thermochemical upwellings from the core mantle boundaries, so about 2,700 kilometers deep in the Earth these come up from. And they will penetrate the lithosphere, and they're very hot and chemically enriched, and they can melt pretty readily. And those will form island chains, like you'll see like Hawaii is the most famous example, where you can trace it back 80 million years of seamounts. And since those mantle plumes are rooted to the core mantle boundary, independent of the upper lithosphere's motion, we can actually track how the lithospheres move through time by determining the ages of those seamount chains. Those are the big three. There could be some other smaller ways of doing it, but that's what we focus on. This seamount, I believe, formed from a hotspot based on my models. Either the currently active hotspot under Pitcairn, this island in northern French Polynesia, or a hotspot that's currently active in the Marquesas in another area of French Polynesia. So I think these are the ancient expressions of those hotspots that are forming islands today.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you.
Part of the reason you get mantle plumes is to maintain mass balance in the lowermost mantle. So when you subduct a slab, like in a trench, say going down into the Marianas Trench, you're subducting crust and oceanic lithosphere. That will eventually go through the upper mantle and penetrate into the lower mantle and sink to the core mantle boundary region. And then mantle plumes kind of represent the return flow to maintain mass balance from that event.
So mass balance means you get out of it what you put into it?
Yeah, exactly. You're trying to keep the lower mantle the same size. So Earth convects on two different levels, essentially. There's a shorter term convection where you have these cells in the asthenosphere that are driven thermally, mostly. and they come up and they produce the divergent spreading zones, like mid-ocean ridges. And then you can have long-term mantle-wide convection, where you have subducting slabs penetrating all the way down to the deep mantle, and mantle plumes returning all the way back up, material into the upper mantle, and occasionally onto the surface.
Okay, the asthenosphere is the boundary between the crust and the mantle? The upper
The
mantle?
asthenosphere is the mantle, essentially, the uppermost mantle that convects
Okay.
independently. Yeah. So, and then the lithosphere is part of the mantle. It's confusing. There's, but because there's seismic defined and then there's petrology defined, and so it kind of overlaps. But the lithosphere includes part of the mantle, but it's part of the mantle that actually subducts when a slab goes down, and it includes the crust. The asthenosphere doesn't subduct. It's just a plasticky, viscous, hot material that convects.
Hot silly putty, if you will.
Yeah. It's not liquid. It's always something you gotta mention multiple times in Geo 101, but is kind of just like a viscous plastic silly putty like that. So it can move into form, but we're talking about long time scales, millions of years. Anyway, that was a very long-winded answer.
I'm gonna need to look at a diagram again, but yeah, I'm imagining, yeah, this sort of the textbook diagram with like inner core, outer core, mantle, crust.
Yeah. So then you can take the mantle and split it into 3 different spots.
Those
Or more.
those Earth as birthday cake diagrams are some of my favorite.
Yes. It's a nice little rocky ridge. So yeah, I think once we hit waypoint 2 on the east side of the ridge, we can kind of start moving towards the east side of the ridge. We'll get more critters. It seemed like that steep wall that was east facing was the most amount of coral we've seen so far. There's one.
There's one right there.
Is that black coral?
That is another black coral. That is the other species of heteropathes. That's Heteropathes americana.
Oh.
The other one we saw was Heteropathes pacifica.
Ah.
Go ahead and push on in there a bit, please.
Oh,
what is that? Can we get a zoom on that
The
fight?
snail.
Wow.
It is. It's a snail running
It's a
away.
snail running away.
No, thank you. No, thank you. No,
Full
thank you.
wide.
Oh, it's still going downhill.
Yeah. I think it's shrimps and snails.
Head over
for
feet
Chanel.
for head over tail.
That's probably the most active animal we've seen.
That is a Gaza snail.
I bet it's still rolling.
Go ahead and push on in there. Center screen. I think that's the snail still, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
nailed it.
Snailed it.
Oh.
Got a lovely silver shell.
Wow.
It looks like it tuckered itself out.
Full wide, please.
Cool.
Okay, I'll start coming up.
Oh, the great Daniel Wagner's in chat. He says it's the tumbling snail.
Sure is.
Very fitting name.
As advertised. Okay.
There's a
Oh,
big
we've got-
anemone right there
Yeah, an anemone.
on top of a stalk.
Sorry, guys. I
Looks like a
think I
piranha
got
plant
the
from
time.
Mario.
We don't have enough pennies in our
No pennies in the Zoom bank.
Zoom
Going.
bank.
Oh, we've
know,
seen them before.
There's a deceptive thing about the screen thing I was saying the other day, how if Park is at the top of the Atalanta screen, we have pennies. Doesn't account for if there's slope, it's going straight up, which is what it's doing now. So it's like not so much ahead as it is just directly out in
We'll
front
see.
of me.
It's the Pythagorean theorem, right? So for every instant,
So work through it.
Yeah.
Get
But
us there.
Every
The
bank has
analogy
its
bit.
fine print.
All right, we are out in front again.
Here's a question in the chat. Is there a spare controller for the arm just in case it becomes non-repairable on board?
No, I don't think so. We don't have a hot swap for that. I imagine it not. It's one of those things where I don't make those decisions, right? But I would imagine that the cost of a whole second hot spare is not as valuable as the technical expertise of the people you've hired to work on the vehicles, and that it's more cost effective just to trust them to be able to repair things. And having all the parts to make repairs, but not an entire second manipulator. But that's just a guess, really.
I would agree. It's what you guys get paid for.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Yeah, so that's the thing about from an outside perspective watching the ROV team work is that, yeah, they are definitely working hard in the van. They're paying attention to, I don't know, 100 different buttons and switches and readouts, but when the ROVs are on board, they're often fixing stuff. So there's a full there's a hangar for Hercules, as well as a work lab,
Can I get a zoom on
shop.
that?
Go ahead and start your zoom.
And they're just constantly in there fixing stuff.
Some kind of beautiful jelly. Ooh.
Very graceful.
Very. So those little tentacles have its pneumaticis on them? The little fine ones?
Yes, those will have pneumaticis, and the ones in the middle may have some too, but those fine ones certainly will.
Full wide, please.
Very cool.
So in on my favorite jellyfish, the lion's mane, there is a little amphipod that will settle out and live on top of the bell.
Oh.
Very cool.
Are you doing a DVL reset there, please, Chris? Thank you. I wonder if that considers itself to be the cowgirl of the ocean.
Riding on the back of a jelly. Put that in the list of things to doodle later.
Right.
Riding alongside the Norbit cowboy.
Actually, it's a mapping jelly, and then the Nora built in.
Seem to be back out of the current now. It's just the marine snow is just sort of hanging here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're kind of shielded looking at the maps of the high comp currents in this spot until we hit probably waypoint 3. Then we're going to be exposed.
Reach nav, 75 meters, 070.
Are the currents down
Nice
here?
little shrimp.
Are the currents down here fast enough to sort of like, I don't know, sandblast one side of a seamount and then kind of collect on the backside?
I don't think so. I haven't seen that at least. You can get sediments, well, not in this area in the mid-Pacific. You can get them. We saw what called sediment slugs sometimes, where you can have strong deep sea currents and they'll deposit like mud on one side of the volcano. We saw that in the Izubonin arc we were doing some drill work there south of Japan, and we drilled into this part of in valley, basically in between two seamounts. We thought we were going to be collecting volcanic material from both of those seamounts, and it turned out to be about 2 kilometers of mud. And it was a very boring start to the expedition, just pouring up mud and mud and mud. Really good for climate studies because it was high deposition rate, so it's a good archive, but that was basically current-driven sediment slug is what it was called by the sedimentologists.
I like the terminology, slug.
Yep, just a big wedge. It is slug-shaped wedge of sediment. But you tend not to find that in the mid-Pacifics. Nothing strong enough in this area.
Here's a question related back to the hydroid that we saw. Is a hydroid a single organism or is it colonial, like corals?
It varies, so you can have both. There are solitary hydroids, but you can also have hydroids that form colonies. So they can live in both. There are species that do each of those things.
Could we tell if the species that we saw, if it was colonial or not?
It was a little unclear with some of those fronds, but the furthest right one we were looking at back there was definitely a solitary hydroid. In this tumbled rubble, I'm back to getting really briefly excited that I'm seeing something fun and then quickly realizing that it's just a rock shadow.
Yep. Someday we're going to find a giant, pure black amorphous creature. And we're going to be vindicated. Until then, rock shadows. Every time I see one, I think, oh, there's something.
Here's a question in the chat. What is your favorite underwater symbiotic or commensal relationship?
That's a good question. I like the little crustaceans that live in the vase glass sponges.
Yeah, those are cool.
That's a good choice. There, where I live in the Pacific Northwest, there is a species of clam called a horse clam. That is a close cousin of the clam called the geoduck. And there is a tiny species of crab called a pea crab that lives inside the clam. And I love them mostly because they horrify people as they clean the clams. But they are actually a really cute little white crab that lives inside these clams.
Nice. There's a stalk of something covered with probably hydroids.
Yeah.
And then a much longer, what is that, stalked crinoid on the left?
It does appear to be a stalked crinoid.
And which one would you guys like to look at?
Let's look at this crinoid, because I haven't seen a non-red one in a while.
Roger.
Unless Meredith has a different.
No, that's just one of the solitary bamboo corals that we've seen a couple of.
Ah, okay.
I did think of another possibly commensal relationship, and that is off of Southern California. There is a black coral called the Christmas tree coral, Enypniastes dendrocristos. And its name really does mean the Christmas tree black coral. And one of the reasons it got its name is there is one of these squat lobster galatheid crabs that lives up in the branches of these corals, and they can be enormous. They can be several meters across.
Whoa.
And often one of the ways you can spot them from a distance is just seeing these crabs that appear to be floating in space like little ornaments, and then when you get closer you can see the coral appear underneath them.
Cool. I gotta do some Pacific Northwest dives, or Northeast Pacific dives, depending on what angle you're looking at. It's a nice looking crinoid. Yeah, it's interesting color. I don't think I've seen one this expedition that was kind of tannish. These are actually echinoderms, not cnidarians like corals.
Go ahead and come a little wide there.
And these guys used to dominate the Paleozoic seas. And after the Permian-Triassic extinction event, they've never fully recovered.
Pull wide, please.
And they've actually, diversity has decreased steadily through time.
I've actually found fossils of their stalks in the Grand Canyon in some of the limestones.
Yeah.
What's that?
That looks like a Walteria, maybe?
Yep, Walteria, first one of the dives. So we're starting to finally get into a little more animal life here.
That looks like a coral.
Oh, wait, that is a coral. Yeah.
Oh, sneaky coral.
Sneaky coral. That's a.
What kind of coral is that?
I think it's a bamboo,
Really? That's really thick polyps.
but it's hard. Yeah, it might be a stoloniferan growing over a bamboo stalk.
Oh.
So that's actually what, looking at this, my guess is that this is a stoloniferan coral, which is a coral that can grow in a flat sheet that is growing over the stalk of a bamboo coral.
Is that tiny shrimp?
Yep.
Oh, it's a little baby. That is so little.
Let's do this. All right, go ahead and push on in again, please.
We need micro scale lasers.
Ooh. Oh, wide. Sorry about that. That was not ready. Sorry. I'm on a little perch, and the little perch got to us.
Yeah, so Asako and Steve in the chat agree. It's a stolonifera, likely on a sponge stalk, potentially.
Reg.
It's probably how it fooled us into thinking it was a Walteria from a distance.
Yeah, it looked like one from a distance, yeah.
Pull wide there. Get out of
Very cool.
again. Sorry about that.
That was a fun ride.
You know when you tip your toe on something and you're stationary and then you're really not?
Yep.
Yeah.
It was like Tower of Terror for a second there.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was like that drop at the beginning of a roller coaster where you're like, whoa.
Thanks, guys.
Let's just get a quick profile.
When you just miss a stare.
Exactly.
All right. Coming out ahead again.
It's very the tortoise and the hare, Herc and Atalanta, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm the tortoise and you're the hare, but you get distracted and I just keep going.
Especially on this terrain.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Shiny, shiny, run.
There's a sponge encrusted something. I mean, an encrusted sponge on the right, and then a non-encrusted sponge straight ahead.
And it's the same type of sponge that we saw earlier, hey?
It looks like it, but not healthy.
Would you like a sponge with crust or without?
There's a bamboo that fell over.
There's a Ramuligorgia.
Yeah. I wonder why Ramuligorgia handles this
push on.
environment well.